We're getting back on track here with Catherine and Emily, but as you know, we won't stay there for long because this is the Going Off Track podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Catherine, that's Emily, and that was weird.
What was that? I mean, I know it was Monaco, but was it?
It was. I mean, we obviously are relatively new to the world of Formula One, and there have been some weird races that even weird races that we have seen. But I think this tops my list right up there with the 2005 U.S. Grand Prix of weirdest Formula One race I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we learned that teamwork makes the dream work, and it really
did.
it really just solidified like Monaco happens on Saturday, and Sunday is just a parade to congratulate you on how you did in qualifying.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I sent you a meme, but I saw a meme that was like it was something about like qualifying and then doing 68 to 70 what, however many laps
Oh,
the race
no,
was.
it's when are we going to
laps.
When are we gonna like quit the lie and just give in that Monaco is a race that happens for one lap on Saturday and is a parade on Sunday?
There was one that was literally like in 72 formation laps.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. That's what it was. Yes.
The memes, there were some top tier entertaining memes. If you hear any noise in the background, I am babysitting some dogs, and including a dog that is trying to eat another dog, but like they're playing. But if you hear any whining, that's because of them, and if you hear any barking, that's because their older sister is mad that they're having fun.
And if you hear any background noise, I'm at a bachelorette party, so go team. This is how we podcast. But no, still, with all of our craziness going on, we both got to watch the Grand Prix. I did not appreciate it because, one, it was a disappointment, and two, I'm in a different time zone, and it was way earlier than I was expecting or wanting it to be. So I woke up early on a bachelorette weekend to watch a stupid parade. But
yeah, it was weird. Like, it was like, that's the only thing I can think of to describe it is weird. But before we dive into all of it, I do want to talk about something that happened before the race weekend started, is that the F1 drivers, team principals, and other relevant members from the team were all invited to the private premiere of the F1 movie, which is coming out a month from now. Is
wild to say. I feel like we've been talking about it for years.
Like a year at least. And there were so many jokes of people saying like, oh my gosh, it looks like they're all on a school field trip, and that like Fernando is their teacher, because like just with the way everyone was dressed and just the way that the whole room was set up and everything, it gave field trip vibes. But the funniest part for me was the two notable drivers who were absent from the festivities: Max Verstappen and Lance Stroll.
I mean, to me it makes sense. And hear me out.
Oh yeah.
Max was simming, and like Max is Max, and he'll do whatever he wants. And Lance, Daddy will pay the fine if there is one. So he just didn't want to show up.
I mean,
that or he forgot he was an F1 driver, because
I mean, maybe, but from what I had seen, Lance said he was busy. Whatever. And Max was just straight up like, I don't feel like going. I'm away for so long. Obviously, his partner just had a baby. So like an extra couple of hours that he could spend at the apartment that they live in while he's simming and the baby's there, like might as well be at home. And also like in the continuing adventures of all the things within Formula One and of Max's job that he does not care about, this movie is one of them.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I don't know why this randomly popped in my head, but I can just imagine like some of the drivers having his location, and they're like, oh, he's at home. Oh, he's probably with Kelly and baby. And really, it's like you see in their home and he's just like sitting in his little sim racer machine. And it's like, just kidding. I'm here with them, but I'm not, because I am Max Verstappen.
Yeah. Also, apparently he got like a brand new pink steering wheel for his sim rig in honor, I'm assuming, of the baby. And I'm just like,
love.
Like all of these like little like motorsport themed baby gifts that I'm sure he's looking at like, I hope my daughter doesn't want to be a racer. I don't want to do it. So yeah. I think it's great. But then I also really loved the drivers' reactions to the movie, because they were playing the PR game so freaking hard with what they were saying after the fact to the media.
They
and
had been coached
to death. Like, and as somebody who worked in, PR and used to be in charge of guiding athletes and telling them what they should and should not say, I wish I could be a fly on the wall for both the drivers' actual reactions and how they were told to phrase those reactions in a positive way to market this movie.
Yeah. We talk about this all the time. These guys are heavily coached in everything they do or say, and like when they slip is great because we actually like see who they are as a person. But yeah, I think it was an interesting weekend of PR, let's just say.
Yeah, and I also think that like what they were saying about the movie really does make sense. And a couple of them compared the movie to Drive to Survive, where Drive to Survive is a great introduction to Formula One and motorsport, but if you know too much, you're going to get annoyed. Like, we are in the part of our Formula One enjoyment, our Formula One lives, where we watch Drive to Survive and we're like, that's taken out of context. That's not what happened. You're missing like the best part of that race. And like the fact that they cut the Lando bit out of Singapore 2 seasons ago is something that still annoys me. And if you don't know what that is, then like that's just what you miss in Drive to Survive. And I really feel like that's, the movie is going to be a great marketing piece to get a lot of people into Formula One who maybe weren't aware of it or had less of an understanding of it, and get them in so that they can learn and be, crazy people like us.
Yeah, and I think we'll still enjoy it. We may have more opinions than like a casual F1 fan, but I still think, and maybe the F1 drivers are just full of baloney and had much better reactions or feelings than they really do have. But I think it'll still be entertaining and good. Like, it's not supposed to be exact replica, because if it was, it'd be a documentary. This is for entertainment value. They have to, throw some stuff in there to make it exciting.
Speaking of documentaries, you know that we're in a documentary?
Oh my gosh, I know. And everyone keeps bringing it up to me. And if you haven't seen it, just watch it. The Seat on Netflix following Kimi and Tonelli. I look like absolute dog shit. And everyone keeps snipping it and sending it to me. And I'm just like, thank you. Thank you all. I remember filming this. It was like 11 o'clock p.m. at night for me because this was in busy season in February. It was a brutal time. Very, very hard time for me.
It was a brutal time. It was like back to back to back F1 news. It was some of the biggest breaking news in the history of the sport.
Right.
And it was at the very beginning of all of the silly season speculation that we spent an entire year on.
Oh my God, I know.
That said, go watch The Seat. We're in it. It's also really good.
It also is really good, yeah. But to get back on track a little bit,
I think that the movie is going to be entertaining. It is going to be lots of room car go fast, not so much by way of plot. We know, like, I'm sure we can all figure out what the plot is going to be, by now, based on the most recent trailer that got dropped last week and a half ago. But I do think that this is going to be really good for Formula One. Lewis Hamilton, who is one of the producers and is like he's led the charge of like, you're not doing this right. This is how you do it. This is how you say it. Like, Lewis is just like, I want to make movies forever now. Like, this is his like future career path is going to be movie producer. And I think it's going to lend a lot of benefit to the movie itself with Lewis's name attached. And I think that it's going to be entertaining, whether you know too much about the sport or whether you don't know enough. Children, can you calm down?
No, I completely agree. But yeah, it comes out June 25th, 27th. One of them is US, one of them is international.
Yeah. So. I was very entertained by all of the PR that was PRing, leading into a weekend of how is this going to work? And spoiler alert, it didn't.
Yeah, so the the mandated two-stop. Not gonna lie, I had a feeling this was gonna happen, but I was like so hopeful because we all know I love Monaco as a race. I really want it to be a sprint race. I don't think we can get rid of it because it is such a historical race, historical track. It means so much to F1. When a lot of like average F1 fans think of F1, they think of Monaco.
ESPN also only
Right,
thinks of Monaco.
exactly. So like I am all for throwing shit and see what sticks. So I think it was Fred Vasseur or maybe the team principal of McLaren. His name is escaping me.
Andrea Stella.
Thank you. That's why you're here, to help me with my words. I think one of them said they're all for like being inventive in F1 to move the sport forward and to make things more exciting, entertaining, challenging. So I think it'd be cool if they start doing this for more races, not necessarily like mandating 2 stops, but like putting some sort of, you know, you have to do this or you can't do this. I know that might change the sport a little bit, but I think it's exciting. Again, this is all for entertainment value. How can they make their sport better? How can they move it forward? So I'm for the strategy of making things exciting. Unfortunately, I don't think this worked.
I think there were a couple significant problems. Number one, Pierre Gasly first lap crash into the back of Yuki's car, and then he ended up, you know, going through half the track with no front wing and half of a tire hanging off of his car, and that gave what nobody wanted, which was first lap pit stops. Because as we saw last year, first lap pit stops not even pit stop, the first lap red flag, everybody pitted, so we had a parade. But I think that the issue with Monaco in this race specifically is that there was no real tire like window. Usually you have a typical pit window for when you're going to switch up your tires, and this race had everybody was going into their own pit windows. There was no like standardized pit window. Barton Brundle said on the Sky broadcast something that I think would actually potentially help for next year, which is you mandate 2 pit stops, but you mandate them within a certain amount of laps. So within the first 30 laps, you have to pit once, and then in the next whatever amount of laps, you have to pit another time. Like, give them windows.
I agree.
Would it allow someone to pit on lap 31 and then lap 32 to get your first half and second half? Yes. Would most drivers do that? Probably not. But would it give a little bit more of that intrigue that we were looking for today? I think that there might be a chance of that.
I agree. And I think they're going to just have to, like I said, keep throwing shit at a wall and see what sticks. I like the window like he was talking about. My brother and I were actually talking about it because I watched it with him today, which was really fun and exciting. But yeah, I think, but I like it. But at the same time, the more restrictions and restrictions and restrictions, it's like, is this even really, worth it?
Worth it. Right. Which I think that there's a fine line. And I think that mandating pit stops within certain, zones of time it's not going to kill the race. Obviously, mandating.
I mean, the race is already dead, Catherine. So
exactly.
We're just trying to bring it back to life.
Yeah, and the thing is there is a way to make this more exciting and better. Obviously, next year we're going into a brand new regulation, which we're going to have completely different cars that are going to be smaller. I don't know how significant the size change is going to be in the grand scheme of a very narrow track like Monaco, but it might be enough to put us in a situation where we had last week in Imola, where at Imola, there's one place on the track where you can overtake, and maybe smaller cars will give us one place on the track at Monaco where you can overtake.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think unless they make Monaco weekend a sprint race, I just don't think it'll hold the entertainment value.
Yeah, and I mean, the entertainment value of Monaco is less so the race and more so the Monaco of it all.
It's more for the people in person.
Yeah, and it's also things like watching the drivers be warned that they're not allowed to spray the champagne to hit the royal family, before they go onto the podium. It's things like that are like, those are the hallmarks that you look out for in Monaco, rather than, actual exciting racing like we got, say, the last time a driver outside of the top 3 finished on the podium and won the race, because that was one of the most ridiculous races of all time. So in Monaco, you need something to induce more pit stops and more intrigue, and also probably weather.
Yeah, I completely agree because the weather kind of throws everything. Because even James, which it was a James weekend, thank goodness
Which we
for that.
love.
He even said, like, I can't imagine how horrible this is for the viewer at home. And so, I mean, everyone recognizes it. It's not just people complaining. Everyone knows that Monaco needs to be fixed. And I think before anything else in F1 gets fixed, I think Monaco will get fixed because they can't lose Monaco. They can't lose out the crown. It literally is called the crown jewel of F1. So they'll keep working to fix it. And I think because it matters so much, maybe they can, but I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that there is a very hefty audience of people who are very much in this camp of Monaco just needs to go. And I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I am saying that not every race can be a banger. We know that not every race is going to be a banger. What are you doing down there? These freaking dogs, man. Anyway, like Monaco is goes hand in hand with Formula One. You're not gonna get rid of Silverstone, which was like basically one of the first F1 races. Like you're
Right.
when you have the opportunity for someone, say Kimi Räikkönen, to DNF in the race and then watch the rest of the race from his yacht like he did in 2006, those are the hallmarks of Monaco. Weird Monaco. Like Max could have done it because Max just debuted his brand new yacht, so he could have DNF'd and ended up watching the rest of the race from his yacht. Obviously, he would have gone straight home, but he could have.
Yeah. I don't know. I need something else. I'm jonesing for a good race. I think we'll get one in Spain. It's hard having Imola and Monaco like back to back because they're both kind of like the stinkers, and I think I'm just needing good racing again. So maybe I'm being too hard on Monaco.
Well,
I don't think I am, but
no, but I think if you look at the grand scheme of how Formula One has been the last few weeks, you had Miami, which is never exciting.
Horrible.
Then you go to Imola, which was intriguing, and then you go to Monaco, which is, try as we might, it's very difficult. But before we move on from the two-stop strategy and how to fix Monaco, I do want to know from audience, viewers, listeners, what do you think is an out-of-the-box idea that could fix Monaco that isn't like, doing something that's like straight up out of Mario Kart, because we already have that in Al Qadaya in Saudi Arabia. And yes, sprint is an answer. Making it a sprint weekend is an answer. Stefano Domenicali, listen to us. Just try it. Try it next year.
I won't stop, Catherine, until I get a sprint race at Monaco.
I don't disagree, but I want to know. So leave those in the comments. Send it to us in DMs. We want your thoughts, and I don't want to hear Monaco just needs to leave the calendar. I don't care about that.
That's not out of the box.
That's
You're not using your creative thinking cap.
Exactly. So I want to know about that. But to speak about what actually happened in this race specifically, Lando won.
Yeah,
and that's that.
Okay, let's just pause on Monaco and like sidebar and go off track here.
Okay.
I'm really tired of Lando. And like maybe that's harsh. I know I was like really excited for Lando to get his last win last season, and we all know I'm the biggest flip-flopper in the history of flip-floppers. But like I'm not excited to see him win. I'm almost like frustrated. When he qualified P1, I was like, cool, Lando's on pole, he's gonna win. Like, I don't like this. And I don't know what it is. I can't get behind him and root for him anymore. And I think it's because I really like Oscar and I'm really rooting for Oscar, and it's so clear McLaren is doing everything in their power not to help Oscar. And I think that has some like of my animosity towards Lando. But it also just wasn't exciting to like see him win. He's not a driver I'm actively like getting excited to win.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think it was one thing for Lando to be like setting, awkward F1 records of most podiums without a win, which is what he had before Miami of last year. And then Miami of last year was exciting.
Yeah.
And I have said this many times, but one of my problems with Lando is he won in Miami. He won once, and then all of a sudden he's like, why am I not being treated like a 4-time world champion?
Exactly.
And that's where and this is obviously like, this is a personal issue of mine that I can, this is my podcast, I'm going to talk about what I want, our podcast, but I just, that's what really rubs me the wrong way about him. And if I have to be on a side in the Papaya garage, I'm going to be in the Piastri side of the garage for a lot of the same reasons that you are. And I am also concerned that now that they've tightened up, because there's only 3 points between them in the standings, is like, now it's really going to go back to what Zach Brown going to direct Andrea Stella to do, but make sure that his golden boy, who is not the current championship leader, is getting as much advantage as possible.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought up Zach Brown, because did you see him on the podium being like,
I did.
Yeah, look at me, ah la la. I can't stand that man. And I think also I'm becoming less and less and less of a fan of him because of how he treats Oscar and how they like make decisions for Lando. Like, I don't like it. He's just really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, like, and not even that it was a bad thing to ask, but even Lando getting on the radio and saying, like, can Oscar help me, please? Like, and we had seen an entire race of like teammates helping each other out, and everybody was playing the team game. But when it gets to like Lando asking Oscar for help, that the problem is that Lando would never help Oscar if the situation was reversed.
I know. And that's the thing, like, if you want a teammate, you have to be a teammate. And I feel like they're just not on the same page. I think Oscar's buying into it, but I don't think Lando is. And I think it's going to get even worse now that they're only 3 points apart. But it's also hard because the more that you have them fighting, you'll see them possibly not doing well. I mean, the McLaren is clearly the fastest car. They're gonna win the Constructors easily. They have like double everybody else's points already.
A lot.
Yeah, it's insane. So I don't see them losing out, but it could be dangerous. It could be bad. I don't think it's screaming a bright future for the Papaya if you have your drivers constantly fighting for this number 1 spot and Zach Brown constantly playing favorites.
And also saying we don't have a number 1 driver, which, spoiler alert, they definitely do. But I will credit Lando with that. McLaren is fast, and
it's super fast.
The track record that Lando set when he with that quali lap was one of the most perfect Monaco laps we have ever seen, including some of like Max Verstappen's quali laps.
Yeah, because even when Charles crossed and he was like provisional pole, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then I was just watching Lando's lap. I'm like, oh no, he's on, this is it.
There was so no chance. Yeah.
No, it was, I think, the most perfect lap you could do in Monaco.
Yeah, and then to speak of the Max angle, I thought that Max's part to play in the latter portion of the race was really interesting because he was trying so damn hard to help Charles win the race in a way that like Max never typically does. Like Max, like to go back to what I was referencing earlier in Singapore in 2023, Carlos gave Lando DRS to help preserve their lead over the Mercedes cars. It was Lewis and George who were behind them, and that helped Lando stay in podium and help Carlos win the race. That is not something that you see out of Max. Like Max will give his teammate a tow in qualifying, but
that's the extent of his teamwork and willingness to help.
But also that's the extent of the position that Max really is ever in as a teammate, because it's usually like, Checo was there to back Max up in his championship charge. That's the job when you're Max Verstappen's teammate. So to see Max backing Lando up into Charles and giving Charles as many opportunities as possible in those last 10, 12 laps to try to get Charles to overtake, because you saw the second Max went into pit that Lando was just gone. Like Lando, there was no catching him in that last lap and a half. That he did everything he could. Max had to go in, and Charles just couldn't get it done because you can't overtake in Monaco.
Right. So, also Charles was there. he did get P2, and Oscar was P3.
Yeah, Oscar. to say that Oscar in P3 didn't have his best day, it's like he didn't have his best day as a serious championship contender. But like, look at the Ferraris. Like, the Ferraris haven't been good anywhere else, and then all of a sudden the Ferrari decides to be good in Monaco. It's just a track that is tricky and all track position.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I mean, we could sit and talk about this until we're blue in the face, but the big thing coming out of this race, I think, is driver standing and also constructors. So
Yeah.
Oscar is still leading, like we've mentioned earlier. He's 3 points ahead of Lando. And then you drop like 20 points or so. Then you have Max drop a little bit more. Then you have George. And then Charles is there, which, like, I don't know where he's getting these sneaky points, but Charles is sitting in 5th in the driver's standings. I think that's a lot higher than I was thinking he would be. But you still have, you know, Oscar, Lando, Max. And I think that's too why Max was trying so hard for Charles to overtake
It takes
Lando,
away points.
because it takes away points. Exactly. And like Max is fighting with Lando. Well, and honestly, Max is still fighting with Oscar. Like, they're only 30 points ish away from each other. So I think it might shape up to be interesting, especially if the Papayas can't figure out their Papaya rules.
Exactly. And what's also interesting is like you said about like stealing points from it. Obviously Charles, you know, lost a significant amount of points with a DNF earlier this season, but if you go down further, and I didn't write them out in the rundown, but like Isaac Hadjar is P10 in the championship right now with like 15
is wild.
points. Exactly, which is wild. So like the amount of the fact that there are only 3 drivers right now in double-digit points in race 8 really goes to show that there is a spread of a lot of points being taken by other drivers who have, like, you'll have somebody have like a random high finish. Like, one week it was Gasly finishing high up, then he didn't finish at all. Then you have Esteban finishing in the top 10, stealing some points. Lance Stroll finished in the top 10 a couple of times. You have, you know, the V-Carbs, both of them finished in the top 10 today. So it's really there's a lot of balance within the, you know, outside of the top 5, where you have a lot more of a spread, which leads to what we have in the Constructors Championship, where McLaren is way ahead.
Right.
But 2, 3, and 4 are within 5 points of each other. Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari. Mercedes has 147 points and Ferrari has 142. So that they're super close. And then you go down to P5. So Ferrari, 142 points. P5 in the championship, 54 from Williams.
I know, it's wild. And I think next weekend Ferrari will jump to P2 in the championship. I think Kimi's starting to have a little bit of inconsistency as a rookie. I think he started off really strong, and now I think we're just kind of seeing some of those rookie moments, maybe not as consistent. And Red Bull really only has one driver who's, you know, getting points. And Ferrari, I don't know how, but Hamilton and Leclerc keep finding ways to get in the points. And so if they can have 2 drivers consistently hitting points, they'll easily jump Mercedes and Red Bull next weekend.
Yeah, I will say in Kimi and also sort of George's defense, the Mercedes problems in qualifying were not driver induced. The car decided
Shut
to
off, yeah.
crap out on them both. So that is a significant issue with the power unit, of which Mercedes is their own constructor. So that's a problem. But I cannot, you know, obviously back-to-back Imola, Monaco, not 2 great weekends for Kimi, but I wouldn't be worried yet about him taking the Rookie of the Year position. I think it's between him and Hadjar, and I think right now Kimi still has the edge, though Hadjar is on a charge right now, which we love to see.
I mean, we're only like a third of the way through the season. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be Bortoletto by the end of the season. You never know. But I think there's still a lot that can move. Okay, so that's where everyone is kind of like shook out. Although this weekend wasn't super exciting, I did see some really exciting things. Personally, I'm loving the teamwork of Williams. Like, oh my God, so good. Carlos just being like, don't worry, Alex will end up in P9. Like, we will switch. Let's just, you know, do what's best for the team. And they both held everybody back. So refreshing to see. Alex played along too, because, you know, Carlos helped him out, so he's helping Carlos out. The car looked really good this weekend. James was a little disappointed in like how things were shaking out with the V-Carbs, which we'll talk about in a second. But they had to react, and they reacted how they did. They ended up with a double points weekend. Williams, I mean, for them to be 5th in the Constructors, even though they're almost 100 points back from P4 in Constructors, like, I don't care. They're still sitting in 5th place. It doesn't matter how many points you have as long as you're in that 5th place spot. So I'm really excited to see what Williams is going to do for like the second, or I guess the last 2/3 of the season. But that was exciting to me, just to see like them really being able to work together, because that's in theory what you're supposed to do with your teammate, is work together so that the team gets more points.
Exactly. And as we have been saying, this is Williams' best season in at least a decade. Like this is Williams is on track in James's 5-year plan. And I think that committing to taking a home run swing and getting a top tier driver like Carlos is one of the best things Williams could have done, because they have spent so much time over the years being the Mercedes training ground that it's great to finally see them back in and allowing them to be in a position where, like, remember, they're one of the best historic teams in the sport.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really important to remember James saying, like, we aren't going to be the Mercedes junior team. Like, we are going to be our own team standing on our own 2 feet. And I think with him having that vision of like not accepting that they're a feeder team is really what changed like the mindset of everyone there, of being like, we're going to build our own team. We're going to do it our own way. We're going to bring in, top talent drivers, which they have in Albon and Carlos, and just really run with it. And I'm excited to see. Honestly, I'm really excited for 2026 for Williams with like new regulation. But it is what it is. So speaking of VCARB, they pissed me off today, but I understand it. It's fine. Liam Lawson finally got points. That's exciting to see. He ended up P8. Hadjar ended up in P6, which is so great for him. He does really do well on qualifying, so I, kind of anticipated him to maybe surprise and do higher points like he did this weekend with P6, but happy for him. They looked good.
Yeah, I mean, Hadjar, I think he said that he was aiming for P5 in the like right before the race in that interview. So he stayed where he started, but like we haven't really seen a VCARB team, Toro Rosso, what it used to be. We haven't seen a team like this in a while. Like, if you think back on it, like they used to win they had a couple race wins in Toro Rosso. Like, and we're at a point right now where we're not even sniffing podium. So like, I would be so happy to see Hadjar on a podium. Like, please. So this is a career day for both of those drivers. Lawson hopefully is breaking through and settling back into the VCARB, and this all positives from both VCARB and Williams.
Yeah, agreed. And then we have Mercedes, and I'm just really confused. Don't understand. I feel like they were like, let's just do this, and if we don't pit, we don't pit. It doesn't matter. This is basically just practice for us. And I think it was Martin Brundle who said, or maybe it was Crofty, they're like, Mercedes is clearly taking the approach of, if you finish in P11 or P20, it doesn't matter. You still don't get points. So like, screw it. We don't care. So I think as soon as the VCARB team solidified their strategy of like backing people up and Williams followed, Mercedes is like, well, there's no shot. Like, we can't do anything. This is dumb. We don't care. We give up.
Let's just get some laps in. Yeah,
right.
I think that everything that happened with Mercedes is really why this race ended up in the weird column for me, when you have George accidentally cutting through on the chicane and saying, I'm just going to take the penalty, and that because he was expecting a 5-second, 10-second, which really wouldn't have done anything to him based on how the grid was so spread out, and all of a sudden he's getting a drive through and he's like, I'm going to not say a word about this on the radio.
Well, I also don't think it helps his case, like, for penalty wise, where he's like, I don't care, I'm tired of driving behind him, like, I'll just take the penalty. That is not helpful. Like, if he's like, oh, there's no good place for me to give it back, like, we'll just see where it shakes out. Maybe that would have been better. Maybe he should have just stayed silent, but I don't think that's helping.
Yeah, I mean, he would, like, let's be real here, if Max did that, he would have lost his mind as president of the Drivers Association, and as somebody who has to comment on things that Max does. George would have lost his mind if Max did that, which I'm not trying to like do a Max versus George thing, because they do that enough in the media, but I thought that the way George's race was handled was just like really strange. And then they just kept not pitting them because they kept waiting for a safety car, which is really the only viable strategy in Monaco, especially if you're down the grid a little bit or even outside of the top three, is just wait for a safety car. Because if there was a crash at the end of the race before Max pitted, he would have won the race just by virtue of being ahead.
And I think that was so smart of them to put Max in a position where they could have that opportunity. Like, and that's the thing that I think people miss is Max still had to drive a really good race in order to put himself in a position where he can stay out front and then pit on the last lap and still end in fourth where he would, where he started. So I think even though, yes, he finished in fourth, I still think he drove a really strong race to be able to put himself in a position to have an opportunity to win from P4 at Monaco.
Because that's the other really important thing that I think is a distinction between what Max did with Red Bull today and what Mercedes was trying to do is it's one thing to hope for a safety car. It's another thing to be in a position to benefit while hoping for a safety car.
Exactly.
And that's where Max was. And Mercedes, like you said, if you're P11 or you're P20, you're not going home with any points, and there's no chance of moving up on the grid. So it was just kind of like let's get some laps in. Like I'm sure that's what Stake was thinking is let's get some quality racing laps in so we can learn about the car and make it suck less. We hope eventually.
Catherine, that's what they do every weekend.
I mean, yes, but also specifically in Monaco.
All right, so speaking of Monaco, let's jump into our predictions because we had them and they sucked because a lot of people screwed us in qualifying. Okay, so pole, we both picked Dear Oscar and it was the other Papaya, it was Lando. Our podiums were just all over the place. So I will say this is the last time I ever put faith in George Russell. I know I've said this before, but this is my firm stance. Catherine, if I ever put him on my podium, yell at me and don't let me put it. So you had Oscar, Max, Lando. I had Oscar, Max, George. It was science backed and I failed. Also, because I watched with my brother, he was our guest picker this week. So he had picked Lando, Charles, Max. So at the beginning of the race, he really thought that Max would be able to do Max things and end up on the podium, even though it is Monaco. Unfortunately, Max did not, but he gave himself at least a little bit of a chance to get on that podium. Yeah. So none of us got points.
Nope.
Yay. And then P10 ended up being Carlos. You had Yuki. I had Lewis Hamilton. Honestly, qualifying really screwed us. I personally think we need to start picking Monaco like after qualifying, especially if Mercedes power units just decide to like crap out on them. But anyways.
Well, I also think it's funny that like Carlos in P10 was like our solid pick for the first couple of races. We're like,
I know.
That's
and
exactly
like,
where we
no.
expected to be. And then he like wasn't near the points. He was like 12 through 14, and then all of a sudden there he is finally in P10 when we don't.
I know. Well, but see, he usually qualifies better than P10. So why would we pick him for P10? But that's why it's so difficult to pick Monaco. So.
And also he's finally getting used to the Williams and this was a, it was solid week. Like it's taken some time for Carlos to get to where he is in the Williams compared to his teammate.
Exactly. And then for our big surprise of the weekend, we both said that the two-step would work. Sure did not. Catherine, you said that Ferrari, and I, by virtue of picking Charles, said that Ferrari was gonna, have an oops or a rough weekend. Honestly, P2, P5, I feel like we can't complain about that. I think we both got this wrong. I mean, I did pick Charles. He didn't win, so I think for him, he was a disappointment this weekend and didn't do his best. However, P2, P5 is solid from Ferrari. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not what Ferrari would want out of Ferrari, but still, like, the hometown boy got himself back on the podium, which also, this is only his second time on a podium at his home race. So Charles might actually, for real, be leaving the Monaco curse behind, other than, his one little crash with Lance Stroll at the beginning of FP1.
Yeah. All right, well, that is it for Monaco.
It was weird.
Don't have any more thoughts. It was weird. I hope they fix it next year. I hope it's a sprint next year. But yeah, So coming up next, we will have our Spain prediction episode coming out on Thursday. Triple header, super exciting. Welcome back to Europe, everybody, where races are really close and we can do them back to back to back.
Yep.
So I'm just looking forward to some good solid racing. Love to see some overtaking, maybe some drama. But yeah, looking forward to Spain.
Yeah, Spain should be interesting. I want to see drama that isn't drivers being snarky on the radio or Fernando being reminding everyone he's the unluckiest driver in the world, but he is still so unlucky because he qualified so well and he had to retire the car.
I know.
I want all the drivers who haven't gotten into the points yet to get points, but I really want Fernando to finally get onto the points side of the standings.
Maybe in Spain, maybe in his home race.
We can only hope.
We can only hope. All right, that's our episode for the Monaco Grand Prix. That's the podcast. Thanks for going off track with us, guys.